it's a constant reminder I give myself that we all go through conflict. But man, especially in relationships, people can just be so unbelievably stubborn. Their ego just like plants its feet, and suddenly a disagreement can stretch out endlessly, like literally all night, all day. They'll drag that anger into work. They'll be miserable to be around. They'll stew on it, be in a bad mood. And it's all because I guess there's a story playing in their head. They've just unloaded on their partner and it just keeps replaying, replaying, replaying. And because they're not talking about it or working through it, that story just becomes more intense. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We want to convince ourselves that the way we acted was okay. And then there's that thought that we get as well, and we think, how dare they not be the one to apologize to me? How dare they say that? I guess look, I'm guilty of this too. I would like to think much less so now, but it's a human thing. So for me, I've just learned to ask, what's the end game here? Like, what is my ultimate goal? Because when you're in the heat of the moment and the emotion takes over, by asking yourself, what's your ultimate goal for this? It helps you step away from the emotion and think a bit more rationally. So when you think about it, where do you want to land? If you're clashing with your partner, for instance, what's the desired outcome? Do you want to stay stuck in this how dare they mindset forever? Convinced, oh, they should have known better. Like, this is not my fault. Or do you want to try and get back to a place of connection? Get your hugs, your kisses, and feel the love again. I think if you genuinely love your partner, which everyone should, you should want to return back to that harmonious place as soon as possible. And by asking yourself this question, it can get you there a bit quicker. So I guess that leads to the next question. How can I be the one to shift this? This is my favorite question to ask myself when I'm in a conflict. How can I be the one to shift this? How can I pull my ego aside and get us back to that good place quicker? Again, I love this because it gives all the power back to me. Who cares what they said? Who cares what they did? How can I change this? It's about swallowing your pride. Now, I'm not talking about people that are getting abused by someone. I'm talking about particularly with your friends or with your partner. You have a mutual respect for each other, a mutual love and respect for each other. If you can ask yourself what you can do to shift this, even if you feel like you're in the right, this will help you get back to the place that you actually want to be in. So part of this is saying, how can I see their perspective? How can I ask them a question to understand where they're coming from a bit better? Or it could even just be reflecting on what you said and thinking to yourself, okay, well, I might not have intended it in a bad way, but they've obviously taken it that way. So I can see how. Empathy and stepping into someone else's shoes, it's just such an important part to a relationship, to understanding other people. So when you ask yourself this question, the focus now goes from how dare they to how can we get back there, which is so powerful. So I guess that's the immediate fix. That's the immediate way to go from conflict back to connection. But the second, and I think equally important part is how do we prevent getting to that point in the first place next time? It's about addressing those little issues as they surface, I think, before it gets to this big thing that makes us explode. It could even be establishing some rules around how you deal with conflict. I guess here's one rule, though, that I swear by in all my connections with other people, and it's no shouting, no yelling, no shouting. It sounds basic, but how many of us resort to yelling when people we supposedly love do something we don't like? Yelling is never productive. All it does is create hurt to the other person. No one likes to be shouted at, ever. But as soon as emotion gets involved, so many people just turn to that. Another key rule that I like when I'm trying to deal with conflict is not dredging up old arguments that have already been resolved. Once an issue is dealt with and we've put it to bed, bringing it up later as ammunition is just unfair. You need to create, I think, for your own relationships, a personalized set of boundaries or rules. It's like guidelines for you and them. Stuff that you agree upon when there's no emotion involved. And obviously, they're going to evolve as your relationship evolves, but having them in place is important so that you understand where each other are coming from. Because in the heat of the moment, like emotions take over and you risk saying or doing things that damage your relationship. And that's obviously not what anyone wants to do. One technique that I have seen be very successful for some people that I work with is hitting the pause button. So when things are getting heated and unproductive, they agree to stop the discussion and revisit it at a time where they're both calmer. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, an hour, next day. I definitely couldn't do that myself. But the idea is stepping away from that immediate emotional peak, and it allows them to return to whatever has upset each other from a clearer perspective at a later time. You'll often find that when there's less emotion involved, this issue that seems so enormous at the time is actually quite small. I think with all this in mind, though, the real key is just establishing these rules when there is no conflict, establishing these boundaries when you're both in a good headspace. Because it's much easier to implement something when you're both on the same page with it. When you try and implement these things when everyone's emotions are high, it's just a recipe for disaster. We do restorative conversations a lot with kids at school. So someone's done wrong by someone else. And it's important in a restorative conversation to let the other person know how what they did or said made you feel. So I think this is great for any age relationship. Reflecting after the fact and saying, look, I know this might not have been your intention, but when you said X, it made me feel Y. And in the future, if you could just do it this way instead, maybe don't say that. It's a trigger for me. Because what happens is when you have those sorts of conversations with people, they get permission to be vulnerable with you. They get permission to share things with you that they probably hadn't shared before. And what often happens is you uncover underlying triggers. I know for me and for Em as well, certain words can trigger an emotional response that's rooted all the way back to stuff that triggered us when we were a kid, stuff that really hurt us when we were young. Maybe it was from our friends, our family. And so if one of us says one of those things, that's not going to be a good ending. But how were we meant to know that unless we had that conversation? So what ends up coming from these important restorative conversations is you go from disagreements to deep empathy, which is so powerful for any relationship. Often I find conflict between friends or loved ones, it's not usually about intentional harm. Like, I don't think many people go out there that love their partner or love their friends and go, oh, I'm going to upset them today. Most of the time, it's about a misinterpretation and triggered responses. So it means that someone's saying something without malice, but it hits a nerve based on something to do with either their past experiences in the relationship or just past experiences before them. So the reaction is then to that trigger, not the actual intent or actual words. And understanding this dynamic is so vital for de escalating the conflict and restoring the relationship. Because otherwise, you move forward and then there's this animosity between each other, but you don't even know why. So the person who said the thing is now offended that you're offended at them because they don't actually understand why you're upset with what they said. And if you don't unpack it properly with them, then you're never going to understand it either. It takes that personal work to unpack that, yes, this is upsetting me because of something that happened however long ago. I think ultimately navigating conflict in relationships is just a continuous learning process, like anything else. And when things go wrong, the value is never in blaming. It's always in the reflection, always in the conversations that come afterwards that help you repair what went bad, help you repair everything that broke down during the conflict. Because that helps you understand what led to the conflict, what led to the miscommunication and the triggers. And that's where all the growth is. It's about learning from those moments and making better choices for next time, really.